Japan's military resources and capabilities are sufficient already. Our Walton evidence explained that Japan won't increase arms because there simply isn't a need to. Since the military is the same in both worlds, the only thing left for this debate to be based on is how much that military can achieve. First, let's go into our arguments. Extend the Mitchell evidence that explains how so far, declining US credibility plus the lack of response give China a green light to their constant aggression in the Indo-Pacific, such as their disputes with India along the line of actual control, the Senkaku Island conflict, and the Great Dome flights all over the region. In response to this, countries like Australia have decided to fight back independently in instances such as the revokement of trade deals between Victoria and Beijing. China instantly retaliated with harsh taxing on critical agricultural exports. Countries in the Indo-Pacific don't have the edge to deter China alone, and will either submit to being pushed over or send bold attempts at deterrence, but just aggravating China further instead. The region is slowly slipping into panic and chaos as China gains power. Extend our Suzuki evidence, which articulates that China is the only one that can unite countries together through ASEAN and initiate collective defense, creating a deterrence effect and restoring stability. This is because they're the only country with the most political and economic connection internationally and the closest to the US. This makes them a reliable and a model to help stabilize the region. Moving on to frontline, there's no escalation due to checks. This isn't true. This is only true in their world where Japan doesn't take up a leadership role. Right now, we are already seeing empirical examples of Chinese coercion worsening, including artificial island trade wars and the soft diplomatic powers. And there is absolutely a need for a leader in the region. If there isn't collective deterrence group, then China will grow increasingly more aggressive. Again, cite Suzuki when he explained that China is the only possible country that can take up a leadership role. The failure of this is Chinese hegemony at the cost of other countries' sovereignty, as well as destabilizing the Indo-Pacific region. Don't let them kick their own framework for two reasons. It's unfair since we've already responded to it, and it's a valuable educational opportunity. Continue using their framework. They made their bed, now make them lie in it. So even then, the majority of rebuttals are based on Japan increasing offensive capabilities independently and initiating deterrence, but that's not our argument. What we're saying is that capabilities, hard military power, it doesn't have to change. What changes is that now they can aid their allies. In the end, all that we're saying is that we're preventing individual countries attempting to deter China, and instead forming a collective group with Japan at the head. Now moving on to extend some key rebuttals. First, reiterate that we aren't arguing for an increase of budget that aren't already happening. Japan has a military capable of offensive capability. The fact that this hasn't triggered any of their impact means that their arguments are all non-unique. What we're arguing for is that Japan ought to take up a leadership role. Second, there literally has been no arms-based escalation scenario in the last 150 years based on the meta-analysis from our first constructed. By our evidence more, it's a meta-analysis that calculates the risk of escalation at exactly 0. Extend the answers against Japanese intentions. Japan shouldn't suffer for what their ancestors did more than 80 years ago. Even then, turn this argument. Japan should compensate for their crimes by protecting the countries that they wronged. In the end, you will always prefer the pros, since we're the only side that can help Japan's military reach its full potential and stabilize the Indo-Pacific region from Chinese influence and aggression, while the next side can't. Okay.